97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
Just hungry to bring back another Lombardi to Philly. The fans deserve it. Our team deserves it. Culture begs for it.
Now live, this is Football at 4.
And Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by the Fanatic Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. I'm Mike Gill. Geoff Mosher's here. Now, earlier today, we tried to kind of rank the NFC teams. Where is Philadelphia in the hierarchy of the NFC for Geoff Mosher? There's 3 weeks left. Right now, Geoff, the betting odds have the Eagles with the third shortest odds to win the NFC. The Rams are the favorite, followed by Seattle. Where would you put Philadelphia in the NFC hierarchy right now, if you are doing just the NFC teams?
If I'm doing just the NFC teams, I think you have to have the Rams, the Seahawks above there. Now, listen, the Bears beat the Eagles one-on-one, fair and square. Their record is better. They play in a very tough division as well. I'm sure a lot of people feel like the Eagles are better than the Bears, and it was just a bad game by the defense, but you have to give the Bears credit. And ordinarily, I think, even though the Eagles beat the Packers, I think those two teams are very close. But obviously the loss of Micah Parsons, if you're projecting and asking now if they were to play now, how would it go? I still think the Packers are very good, but we'll see. You could put them on even. So I would put those three teams, the Seahawks, the Rams, and the Bears, fairly ahead because they beat the Eagles, and they've played a tougher schedule too. And then the Eagles right after that.
So
if someone wanted to argue the Packers over the Eagles, I wouldn't.
Right. Well, okay. So Philadelphia played Green Bay, but would you say if they played again, you like Green Bay better, or at this point, no Micah Parsons, where Philly had? Now they played, not too long ago in week number 10. Philly was 10-7. Not a clean game by either. But do you like Green Bay at this stage of the season then better than Philly?
I like Green Bay now more than I did when they played Philly because, Christian Watson, I know he got hurt last game, but as long as he's, able to play or healthy, he's brought a lot to the offense. Plus they got Jaden Reed back. And if you look, ever since that game against the Eagles, they've played some pretty good teams. They've scored a decent amount of points. Even in losing to the Broncos, their offense, I think, scored 27 points, if I'm not mistaken. So I think they're just better equipped right now to go head-to-head with the Eagles again. And I guess when you ask the question, Mike, I would have to know, is Lane Johnson still out? Is Jalen Carter still out? You know what I'm saying? I don't know when those guys are coming back. So it's tough. So if they literally had to play this weekend, I might favor Green Bay. If they play in the playoffs and you tell me Lane's back and playing well, Jalen Carter's back and playing well, then that throws a different, equation.
Yeah, no question. I mean, Green Bay is fun. We were talking about this earlier. Philly has beaten Green Bay this year, playoffs last year, Brazil last year. You feel like at some point Green Bay is all right, we're close. We've been right there. We've closed that gap. Same with the Rams. It feels like you've beaten the Rams time after time after time. And now I think you had said, and most people would say, I think the Rams are better than you are. But you've kind of beaten them over and over. The styles make fights. When you look at that style, do you like the matchup of Philly against the Rams, even though you think the Rams might be more of a balanced team right now?
Oh, I mean, listen, I don't think there's any team the Eagles would play where I would favor the other team 75-25. You know what I'm saying? I think the Eagles could beat any one of these teams. But I'm also not sitting here after their game against the Raiders and just vaulting them right back up. I mean, they had 3 bad losses. And I know they played good teams, at least 2 of them, in the Bears and the Chargers. But the offense still isn't running the ball really well. And, they're a hard team to trust until they really start to feel like last year's team offensively with their run game and their offensive line. Same thing, as we're sitting here talking right now, we don't know if Lane Johnson's playing. It looks like he's not, right? Landon Dickerson, who did play and didn't play great, has been out of practice with the calf. So I don't know what's going on with him. Cam Jurgens just hasn't been Cam Jurgens. So when you start to put this offensive line against playoff caliber teams and defenses, it gets way closer to 50-50 to me, just like that Packers game was. That was anybody's game, and the Eagles won it. Yeah. Played great defense. So I would think, can the Eagles beat the Rams, Seahawks, Packers, Bears? Yes, they can. But I also think they can lose to those teams.
And, I'm glad you went down there because it seems like regardless of where you're set up, it's a smorgasbord at almost all 7 teams. I mean, I don't know what you think about Tampa Bay if they get in. Almost all 7 teams. I think the Tampa, Carolina would be obviously the weakest of the crew. But the other 6 teams, it's going to be a really tough road to get all the way through with, as you just said, you have so many teams that are so comparable from 1 through 6, really 7, with Tampa Bay going to be squeezed in or Carolina in that 4 spot.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this yesterday. You're in the 3 seed right now if you're the Eagles, and it's not the worst place to be.
I will say this, and somebody texted.
2 because the 3 seed right now matches up with the 6 seed, and that right now is a San Francisco 49ers team that is 10-4, but I think we can fairly say is somewhat of a paper tiger. Now, they have beat the Seahawks, and they have beat the Rams this year. I'm not taking any credit away from the 49ers. They have went up against some of the best teams and beat them. That was a little earlier in the year, right? But they did it. But if you just look at them as a whole, you say, man, they've got tons of injuries. It doesn't feel like it's their year. And if I can face them instead of moving to the 2 seed and then having to face the 7 seed, which could be Green Bay, could be Chicago, could be the Rams, right? If the Seattle Seahawks wind up winning the division and the Rams lose another game. So, I mean, right now you're feeling pretty good about only having to face the 49ers.
The one thing would be, last year you were the 2, you got the home games, then the Lions lost, and that got you another home game. Being the 3, you would need a couple of upsets to get yourself a couple home games. And someone texted in earlier, the Eagles have never won an NFC championship road game. I mean, to have to go on the road multiple times possibly, that could be a big difference.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that as much. But, I mean, I think if you're the Eagles, again, you're looking at it and you're like, hey, let Chicago finish with the 2 seed, have to play maybe the Packers or the Seahawks, depending on what happens as the 7. Watch Chicago lose. I mean, the pressure's on Chicago. They've not been in this position, much like a couple of years ago after the Super Bowl in 2018 when the Eagles went there for a playoff game and beat them behind the Trubisky. I'm not saying Chicago's bad. What I'm saying is no one expected this so quickly out of them. And if they lost their first round matchup at home, the 2-7 game, nobody would be surprised. But then that team would go to, let's say, the 7 seed won. Then they instead would go play the 1 seed, right? Because in the NFL you reseed, right? And then the Eagles would play a 5 or a 6 at home as the 3 seed, right?
Yeah, because you're counting on the 5 seed probably to win the 4 game.
Probably, yes. I mean, again, who knows how that shakes out? But it's more than I'm counting on the 2 seed to lose. So then, yes, the 3 seed would probably get the 4-5 winner. It doesn't matter. You're still getting it in Philadelphia.
Yeah, you would get either Tampa or I guess right now it's Seattle. And Seattle would have to come across the country for the 2nd week in a row. I think, there's an interesting to bring up. Seattle, their offense is Sam Darnold. Do they feel very much like Minnesota to you from last year where Minnesota won 14 games? For whatever reason, I feel like people are buying more into this Seattle team than they bought into Sam Darnold's Viking team last year.
A lot of really good, a lot of good similarities in that Sam having this great year. It's still a defensive team. The Vikings defense with Flores was really good last year. This defense with Mike McDonald, really good. I guess the only thing is it's now a year later. So Sam has now done this 2 years in a row. And what is he going to just choke in every single playoff game? Probably not. I mean, he looks pretty comfortable this year as a quarterback.
They just they don't have a great running game other than Smith and Jigba. They don't have a great array of guys.
It's fair. I mean, again, if you're asking me the dream scenario for the Eagles, I think it is to have the 3 seed versus San Francisco in the first round and then hope that maybe Seattle upsets Chicago in the second round, or the other, where if it's not Seattle, could be a different team. And then the only nightmare situation would be if the Rams just had a little slip up here, then they finished in that spot and then they beat the Bears and then came to you, although you've beaten them at the link. But, I mean, the Rams are kind of a scary team.
Well,
I wouldn't let one loss down the stretch here make me think differently of them.
Oddly, the one place I feel like you wouldn't mind going to is L.A. because you've won in L.A. against the Rams, and it's not a great home field advantage generally out there. If you went to play the Bears as the number 2 seed in Chicago.
You don't want to go to Chicago, man. Who knows what kind of weather you're getting in wins.
Well, I mean, but my point is, though, the weather thing I don't think plays into as big a factor when you're playing against Philadelphia in your Chicago.
No, but I'm just saying, like, if you're going to Chicago, I mean, a bad weather game doesn't favor either, but you would kind of like your team with all that offensive money in your offense and what your defense is doing. You would just kind of like to play in a good environment.
Well, because I bring this up.
I would say bad weather. Look what bad weather did to the Rams-Eagles game. I think the Eagles were better than the Rams last year by more than what the final score of that game suggested. But the snow just messed things up for both teams.
Geoff Mosher, Football at 4. Now, I bring this up because I'm looking at your power rankings over at phillyvoice.com, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams in the NFC ranked ahead of Philadelphia. You have Philadelphia as your 12th best team in the NFL overall, but you have 5 NFC teams ahead of them, one of which, by the way, San Francisco, is, you just said kind of paper tigerish, but San Fran, you have at number 10, Chicago at number 6, Green Bay at number 5, Seattle at number 3, and the Rams at number 1. So the way that you're looking at it in your power rankings almost sounds like a short playoff run here.
Well, it could be. It could not be. I mean, the power rankings change. I decided I actually weirdly had San Francisco ranked pretty low up until like Thanksgiving. But then, they went on a 3-game win streak. They've won 4 in a row. And I thought, and that at the time it was coinciding with an Eagles 3-game losing streak. So I wasn't just going to switch them because the Eagles beat the Raiders, right? I figured I will make them earn it over this weekend where the Eagles obviously have a chance to make a big move in beating just continue, to win games and beating Washington. And then I think San Francisco has to play the Colts. So
they do.
Even though the Colts are fading fast, if they lose that game and the Eagles win, obviously that's going to change the balance of power. And of course, the Rams Seahawks have to play tomorrow night. And, I don't usually knock the loser of that game too much because those are 2 elite teams going. But if it's 41-0 or somebody gets, completely creamed, then you have to adjust. Same thing with the Bears-Packers, right? If the Bears lose again to the Packers like they did 2 weeks ago, and they're on a little bit of a slide, they're probably going to drop.
On the flip side, just for Jeff's power rankings over at phillyvoice.com, he has the Rams 1, Denver 2, Seattle 3, New England 4, Green Bay 5. Philadelphia has beaten 2 of those teams. They did lose that game to Denver back in early October. So it just goes to show how crowded it is. And you can make a case that the 12th team could be 2, the 9th team could be 12. It just seems like it's such a wide open proposition, to which my question would be, what did we like from the Raider game moving forward that you could say, now they did this against the Raiders. If they can continue to, and I think there's signs that they can, that should help them, improve their standing.
Well, obviously you like defense, and they played good defense. I like the fact that I think they threw 1 single blitz at the Raiders. So their front 4 got home. I do like that they continue to work, not as many because they didn't have as many dropbacks, but they worked a few of those pass concepts that they put in against the Chargers into that game against the Raiders. But other than that, it's really hard to take anything away from it other than anytime you hold a team to 75 yards, and I don't care if that team is 0 whatever and has the worst roster ever assembled, that's still very impressive.
Yeah, their offense is the one thing that showed signs of life. Now, let's talk a little bit. Last night during the Hard Knocks, I don't know if you saw the Hard Knocks. I'm going to assume you did. Did not. Okay.
I'm not a Hard Knocks guy.
All right. Well, I'm not either, but I figured the Eagles were in it that I should kind of pay attention. And so far I thought that all 3 episodes have been weak. Haven't found out much. But last night I think was the first time you got a little something. And it was Saquon Barkley talking with Nick Sirianni and them talking about some of the changes that they have made in the run game and that Barkley's starting to see them and he thinks it's helping them a little bit. Are you seeing changes in their run game?
I am. I thought we talked about it yesterday. I may not. I don't remember. I'm sorry if I forgot to bring it up. But one of the things the Eagles did against the Raiders a little more of, a lot more of, was 13 personnel, and that was getting Cam Latu on the field. He's been sort of a fullback, sort of a tight end. They had 4 or 5 plays on their first drive alone with 3 tight ends, which is basically a statement. We're going to put tight ends on the field, and we're going to run the ball against you, which is an interesting statement for a team that's really struggled to run the ball. But you credit them for, A, getting Latu on the field. He's a good blocker, and B, not just giving up. So that's good. Another thing they did is more gap scheme runs as opposed to zone. They are predominantly a zone running team. Gap scheme is normally when you see a lineman pulling to one side, and it's more hat on hat kind of blocking than zone blocking. And there were, including the 17-yard run that Saquon had, they were doing a little more gap blocking, which is just, it's power football, Mike. It's kind of old school 80s, 90s. We're going to take some linemen, pull them, get them into the second level, and be more brutal, I guess, or use brute force, as opposed to zone blocking where you're kind of moving guys in an area at times. So that was a nice little wrinkle as well.
The other part of the night was there's the touchdown pass from Jalen Hurts to A.J. Brown, to which he comes over to the sideline, and there's a big celebration between him and Sirianni, a big embrace. They're both boo-you-hoo-hoo, and Sirianni says to Hurts, basically somewhere in the realm of, hey, you like that play design, right? You like that play design. And it's almost like it's Jalen saying, hey, let's try this. And we did what you asked, and it worked out for us. Maybe. I don't know.
I saw the clip of it, the entire one, and I almost felt it was like a Big D contest between one guy saying, I designed that, and the other guy saying, yeah, but I threw it in the seam.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
But I had to throw it.
Right, I couldn't figure out, if that's Hurts has been saying for weeks, let me try this, and them not doing it, or them adding this to the playbook and it all working out and them two celebrating together. Because, there has been questions in the past, I don't know about as much recently, about their relationship. It's the first time you've really seen those two kind of having a good old time together.
Yeah, that to me was the big takeaway, is that they were having a good old time together and really seemed to be enjoying it. And I hope, just based on some things I know and talking to people, I'm going to make an educated guess here that the design and adding these concepts are more from the coaches than the quarterback. But the quarterback is the one who's got to pull the trigger. So you give him, in my case, you give him more credit, because that was, Mike, a throw to A.J. Brown, a timing throw. You want to bottle that up. It was where A.J. Brown caught it was between the numbers, which has been always a knock on Jalen. And it was beautifully timed, well executed. Yes, it was a good design, but, you got to throw it into a window there, and he absolutely did it. Well, and that's 2 weeks in a row where Jalen's thrown a pass where you just want to bottle that thing up, like the pass to Devontae Smith in overtime against the Chargers. End result, not great, but that pass, beautiful.
I also like the play design in that AJ ends up being open, but Goddard's also open. He runs a nice seam, and he's open underneath that play. They had the Raiders defense very confused on who to defend where. So he had options, and they were both options that he could see, too. It wasn't like, hey, I got to check off from left and go all the way to the other side of the field. There were 2 options, not in the same area, but within where I could go from one down to the other. So that was a good play design.
So those concepts started last week against the Chargers. We're talking about 3-level concepts or flood concepts for a zone where not when the ball is snapped, but ultimately all the routes converge on one side of the field against the zone, making it hard to cover everybody. Now, last week I thought Jalen did well with it, but there were a couple of times where the high-low concept, he took the low, which is fine. It's first down, take the low, it's right there, it's a check down somewhat. and you move the chains. This time he went to the middle level concept, like that Goddard. I think AJ Brown had a 22-yarder, I believe, and Goddard had also a longer gain where that was Jalen Hurts targeting the intermediary level of a multi-leveled route concept, which is good to see.
And the flood and the choice is the safety has to choose. Does he want to go with the guy who's flying past him or come up on the guy who's underneath? Because there's
players in conflict.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So that is where the play design comes back into play here, where they make a good play. Jalen makes a good throw. And listen, I mean, all the stuff about Jalen, this is kind of who he is. He's not a guy who's going to be 30 of 35 for 340 yards every single week. He might do that every once in a blue moon, and it seems like he does it right when you're starting to question him. Now, this week he was 12 of 15, not 30 of 35, but it's right when you start to question him, he rules out that game. So you know it's in there. Like every time you want to question him and the offense, it's right when you're at the precipice of bailing on them. They do this, right? And that's where you're.
And I'm sorry to interrupt. All this offense needs, I think, is to get a few of those a game. Because I don't think that we're going to get to a point where you're not going to get to a point where you want Jalen Hurts dropping back 30 to 40 times and you expect him to throw it in between the numbers and the seams, on most of his completions. I don't think that they're ever going to be that kind of offense and he will be that kind of quarterback. But if he can give you 3 to 4 to 5 more of those per game that he was giving you 0, I mean, we talk about how they won the NFC Championship game, scoring all those points without him throwing a single pass between the numbers, which is almost hard to believe, right? And even in the Super Bowl, he may have only thrown 1 or 2, but you knew that that's not sustainable, especially if you don't have a great run game to complement it. So, but all he needs is a few more. We don't need to, transform him completely. If that ever happened, that'd be great, but I don't think that's ever going to be the case.
All right, Washington on Saturday, they win the division. So a win seals the division. Dallas would be eliminated. Then you're playing for seeding down the stretch. Should be wild. You got Rams, Seahawks tomorrow night. Big game in the AFC West. A lot of big games over the final 3 weeks of the season here. And, of course, we'll have it for you here on Football at 4 on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Well, Moshe, I probably won't see you again until January.
We'll have a happy holidays, Mike.
You do the same. I'll catch up with you soon.
All right. Take care.
Ho, ho, ho. Geoff Mosher, everybody, from the Inside the Birds podcast, phillyvoice.com. I think that's the last time I'll be talking to Mosher. Tomorrow is my last day on the air for the rest of the year. I will be back on January the 5th after tomorrow's show. But we got you till 5 o'clock tonight. And, of course, on the other side, when we come back, Q Myers, who covers the Raiders, I want to hear what he had to say about that Raider game. Was he impressed with Philadelphia? Did he say, oh, it's just the Raiders? Or did he look at Philadelphia and say, no, that was an ass-whipping? We'll talk to Q Myers from ESPN Radio's Game Night next here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN.